Let me share my screen. Not that you have to let me, but there we go. So the one thing I wanted to show you guys, as far as signing into Zoom, I'm not sure how everyone is doing it, but some of you, and I should actually pull up the chat again. And the participants, that's actually what I meant to do. Come on, participants. Yeah. So many of you show up as guests. And I don't know if you see it or not, but there's like after your name, there's a parentheses with a guest in it. And I think you can avoid showing up that way by signing into Zoom with SSO. So if you see down here, there's a little SSO thing. You type in the UC Davis domain, continue. And there's many places to do this when you log into Zoom, like depending on how you're getting into Zoom. But if you log in with SSO, I don't think you'll show up as a guest. And also logging with SSO gives you the option to have more functionality. I think you can host meetings. I think there's a lot of things. I haven't really looked fully into it, but the one thing it'll mean for our class, I believe, is that if you sign in that way, you don't have to wait for me to admit you to class once class is started. And not that that's a huge deal, like I don't mind doing it. There's only, less than 30 of us, but if you wanted to avoid having that wait, you could. So something to be aware of. All right, that's all I wanted to say about that. And I got a lot of things on my screen here. Let's move things around. So much real estate on this screen here. So lots of things to talk about. So let's look at how things look first. So we're going to talk about just the logistics of this class, and then we will get into the logistics of your actual 16A class, as well as then start actually talking about some math. So as far as this course goes, and I don't actually remember which of these two it is. I'm pretty sure it's workload 911, but let's double check over here. Yes, it is definitely workload 911. So if you're in your Zoom, or sorry, not Zoom, your Canvas dashboard, your classes might look like this, and it might not be particularly easy to remember which one is which or what's what. So I would encourage everyone to change things if they want to. So I'm going to change this to Co-16A, so I know what it's called. And I'm going to change the color because this color here is not quite my favorite. And then you can apply that, and great. I picked the same color, maybe I want them to be different colors. So maybe I'll pick this lovely color here. So that's something you all can do relatively easily. Tatiana, I see you have your hand raised. What's up?
On the course syllabus on our Canvas, yes, it says the class meetings 140 to 3. Is that, are we changing it?
No, I mean, so there's an example of me making an error. Makes me wonder if I accidentally wrote the wrong. So that's the class time that my Co-21C class meets at. It makes me wonder if I wrote the wrong time for my Co-21C class. So let me look at that as well. Good call. Sorry about that. That is definitely incorrect. What I probably did was I probably copied and pasted things and actually forgot to change that. Yeah, so I can edit that real quick. But you're definitely right. That is not the time we are meeting, obviously. We are meeting from 9 a.m. to 10:20 a.m. Yeah, thanks for the catch there. So yes, if you think there's an error, don't hesitate to let me know. And then the other thing I wanted to show you, so the reason I have this page up in Safari instead of Chrome is because this is my fake student account that I made, so I can see what the student view looks like. So if you click on the Co-16A class, you'll see most of the same stuff that I see. But the one thing I wanted to kind of point out that you probably know about but might not is if you go to the assignments tab, typically your assignments show up by date, which is fine. If you want it that way, you can leave it that way. I don't prefer having it that way. I usually show mine by type, just so that it's easier to kind of see what's what. So let's talk about how the class works. It's pretty straightforward. So there's lots of notes here. You can read this. It's kind of just saying what the class is about. Basically, we're here to just do a bunch of math problems. I'm going to show you stuff. I'm going to sometimes give you guys problems to work on and ask you for an answer somehow, probably in the chat, because that seems like an easy way to do it. I imagine people are curious about how the class is graded. So the class is worth 1 unit, pass no pass workload unit. meaning it counts towards being a full-time student, visa status, financial aid, but doesn't count towards graduation. As far as passing the class, there are essentially 3 things you have to do to pass the class. You have to attend the class, and you have to do the weekly reflections and the weekly quizzes. So let's talk about so attendance is pretty straightforward. I will mark everyone's attendance after each class. It's not hard to do, and you can see your attendance in Canvas. The other 2 things, the reflections and the weekly quizzes, are also fairly straightforward, but let's talk about them. So let me actually minimize this for a second. So look at reflection number 1, which you probably can't see as a student. Let's actually take a look, right? So reflection 1, you can't do yet because it's not available yet, but let me show you on my teacher view so you can see it. Reflection 0 is slightly different than the rest of reflection. So I'm showing you reflection 1 because reflection 1 is more going to be like what every week's reflection will be like. So every week there'll be a reflection, and it'll be available Thursday at midnight. So the beginning of it'll be available all of Thursday and all of Friday, and sometime in those 48 hours, I will ask you to in Canvas do the following things. Write a very brief summary of what was covered in your class. It can be like 1 sentence with just the bullet points, whatever you want to do. It does not have to be very lengthy, but it's an opportunity for me to know what's going on and for you to kind of have a chance to reflect upon what did we really talk about in class this week. I want you to send me a math question. It can be very general, like, James, I have a question about derivatives. How does the power rule work? Or it can be a very specific, like, this question, I want to know more about it. I will also say that if you have a very specific question, like how do you find the distance between these 2 points, you can write it in this reflection, or you can say, and I would encourage everyone to try this, James, I wrote my question in a discussion, and then in the discussions, which are right here, you can start a new discussion and say, like, my math question or question about distance. And then you can write, how do I find the distance between, I don't know, the points -5, 1 and 2, 7, for example. And then you could post it, save and publish, I guess. That's what you would want. And then I could answer it. And the nice thing about putting a question here or you put it here and in the reflection is in the reflection, I will often I usually respond to every reflection, sometimes with a just thanks, sometimes with, oh, that's neat, like whatever. But if you write it here, it's easier for me to answer the question using the math type that they have, functionality they have, whereas in the reflection, like little text box, I can't use the math type. So if you have a math question that you would like to see an answer to, I would encourage everyone to write it, to try writing the discussion. The other advantage to that is that other people can see the question and the answers, which means everyone kind of gets the benefit of having the question answered. So I would really, really, really encourage people to use the discussions. You can definitely write more than 1 question, Marshall. No, I would say, yeah, you can write as many questions as you want. I mean, don't get too crazy, but yeah, feel free to write 2, 3, 4, 5 questions. That would be perfectly fine. I might not answer all of them, but I certainly want to see them so that I kind of have an idea of what you guys are curious about, what is, proving more challenging in your class. So yeah, I tried to make discussions happen in my classes last quarter. Students did not really get on board with it, which is okay. But if I see questions and reflections, I'm going to try and encourage people to write them in a discussion. So those are the 2 things that will kind of like always be the same. You can always send me a joke or a meme. Math jokes are great. Math memes are great, but any memes are appreciated. I really, not all of my students, but a lot of my students did send me jokes and memes last quarter and definitely brightened my day. So that's something that I would like. But it is optional. Not optional, but it's really optional, but it's not optional unless you really don't want to answer because it feels too personal. Some of these questions are recycled. Oh, I guess none of you really would have had my co-class last quarter probably. So none of these should feel recycled to you, but I definitely used a lot of these questions in my classes last quarter. This week, or next week, I should say, the question is, do you have any siblings? If so, how many? Are you the oldest, youngest, only child? And then the last part's just saying, yeah, I know some of these questions are the same, but that shouldn't be something that's an issue for any of you. So that's one thing you'll have to do every week. Again, that's if you want to pass the class. If you don't pass the class, it's also not that big a deal. The only way not passing this class is really a big deal is if you need the 1 unit to be a full-time student. But that said, I think everyone should pass the class, right? It's definitely not hard to do these things, and they're worthwhile, I think. The second thing that you will need to do weekly is the quizzes. So let's go back to the assignments. And let's look at quiz number 0 is not really like it is. So quiz number 0, if you want to look at it, just making sure you know how to assign questions and pages after you've uploaded your quiz. So I would encourage everyone should do this. You want to watch the little video. Basically, if you haven't used Gradescope before, this kind of shows you how you can say, oh, this question is on this page. It just makes it easier for the person grading it to grade it. Usually most of the time, probably all of your answers will be on one page. So it'll be really easy to just upload your one page and be like, they're all right there. But if we go to the next quiz, so the quizzes will be available sometime on Thursday or Friday, probably Thursday since our last class of the week is on Thursday. And it'll be due Monday at noon. And it'll probably be somewhere between like 2 and 4 relatively short questions. And the expectation is, so once there is a quiz, the quiz will be right here, like in this blank space. And you'll just click on the PDF, open it. You can print it if you want. You don't have to print it, but you'll write your answers down on paper, or you can type them somewhere if you prefer to type them. And then you will upload your quiz answers to Gradescope. And just so we can look at Gradescope, right? So here's Gradescope. Here's the Co-16A class. So there are no assignments here yet, but once I write the first quiz, I will also put the quiz assignment there. And then once you click on the quiz link, it will take you there to upload it. Leslie, I see you have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, for the quizzes, do you want the questions as well?
No, you don't need to write the questions down. Certainly, if you can print out the PDF that I supply you with and write your answers. I usually do write the PDF so that there is space to answer below if you want to print it out, but you do not have to.
Right,
so as far as how you're welcome. As far as how the quizzes work, so once they become available, you have as much time as you want between the Thursday or Friday they're available and the Monday that they are due. And as long as you do the quiz, you will get full credit for doing the quiz. You do not. So I'm going to grade them, meaning I am going to give all of you feedback. I'm going to let you know if something is right or wrong. Sometimes that feedback will be, you should look at the solutions. Sometimes that feedback will be, oh, you did this one little part wrong here, depending on how much time I have during the week to really kind of get to the nitty gritty. But I will usually provide solutions relatively quickly to the quizzes I have posted, sometimes even before they're due, because I don't care if you cheat on the quiz, because I just want you to do the quiz. I do want you to learn from the quiz, so I think you should try to do it without looking at answers if they happen to be available ahead of time. But really, as long as you just do the quiz, you will get the credit. The point of doing the quiz is that so that I can grade it and give you feedback and let you know, that kind of give you an idea of if you are understanding what's happening or not. So yeah, the quizzes are really just so in a normal quarter, I wouldn't normally give quizzes because I would just be, co-class would be in person and I would be kind of showing you things and we would basically just be based on attendance. But since this is a different kind of class we're having this quarter, I felt like it was important to kind of make sure I was getting feedback from you and making sure that you are understanding what's happening. So this was my solution, for lack of a better word, to trying to make sure that you guys have really, I wanted you to get feedback. I know that in your actual math class, you don't always get a lot of things graded, or it's with web work or web assign, which can feel not super helpful. So this was my solution to that. And so I hope everyone does the quizzes. They're not meant to take a super long time. Like really, an hour is probably way too much time to spend on the quiz. The questions I write, I feel like usually you should be able to do well within a half hour. That said, you have as much time as you want. Do your best, but don't like stress about it. The other thing I should say is not that you shouldn't do the quizzes, but they shouldn't be your first priority. This class is pass, no pass. It's not for a grade. This class is just meant to help you do better in your math class. If you've got more important things going on and don't get to the quiz, no one's going to really have their feelings hurt, or I'm not going to be sad about it. I'll be sad if you miss the opportunity. That said, you can also turn in the quizzes late, I think. So if you feel like you want to turn in the quiz later, but you don't have time to do it right away, that's what I would say to do. So quizzes are, yes, you should do them, but they are not a super high priority. All your other classes you're taking are probably for grades, and I want you to have good grades. So definitely prioritize those classes before this class. So those are the things you have to do to pass this class. You have to do the quizzes, you have to do the reflections, and you have to attend. Should we be at the point where we could take the quizzes without notes, or quizzes be on top of the cover? That's a good question, Marshall. I would always say you should try to do the quizzes with as little outside material as possible, because that is typically how teachers are going to expect you to do things. That said, I haven't looked at all the syllabus information for Abby's class or Dr. Thompson's class, and I haven't been added to the other 16A teachers Canvas yet. So I'm not sure exactly how they are going to be doing their testing, but that's what I would say. I would say try to take the quizzes without outside material, but you're welcome to, right? I would rather you, if you feel like you're stymied on a quiz, right? Like I'm stuck, you're certainly welcome to use outside material to try and kind of help you figure out and what the answer or the process might be and to learn something, right? I think just being stuck on a problem isn't going to really help you feel like you've figured anything out or gained any knowledge. So yes, and I try to keep the quizzes pretty close to the forefront of what's going on in the class, but also there are two different classes, so they might not always be in exactly the same spot. So it might feel like it's kind of ahead for one class, kind of behind for the other, but it's usually not too much of an issue with 16A because the syllabus or the selection of materials for the class is pretty standard at this point. All right, let's see. Oops, that's not maybe what I meant to do, but that's all right. Yeah, go away. I accidentally added this class to my calendar, so I keep giving me these reminders. I think that's all I wanted to say, sharing as far as class information. But now I'm kind of looking back through the Canvas. Oh no, there were other things I wanted to share. Let's go. Sorry, let me continue to share my screen. Yeah, there we go. So a couple other things you might want to see. Let me go ahead and do this from the student view so you guys can see in the student view. If we go to the, so typically there's kind of two places, or maybe three places where things are. There's the syllabus, which has, just all of the, this is how the class works kind of stuff. There's also a few links down here. There are links to the other math specialist websites, which have useful information. There is also a link to the student tutor and online drop-in tutoring that starts next week, I believe. And then there's even more links to places to get help. There's the AATC website. There's Grant's website where, in fact, let's go ahead and click on that and I'll show you. There's my website, which is maybe not super helpful, but it does have one thing. And then there's another, again, the link to drop-in tutoring. So my website, this is me and my cat. And there is some mildly helpful info. The one thing you can find on my website that is probably actually helpful is there's a link to be able to make a 30-minute appointment with me. So if you want to make an individual appointment or even an appointment with you and like a couple other classmates, you're welcome to do that. This will pull up Calendly, which will show my availability. You're certainly welcome to make an appointment with me when I'm available. And I think that's kind of really the only, and then there are links. I need to check some of these links. There are links to the Zoom classes I teach, links for my office hours, links for the virtual drop-in. Yeah. And then there's Grant's website, which has all of the problem solving handouts and the solutions to them, which also, well, at least the handouts are also in the modules tab. So if you scroll, so here's the modules tab. this first module will have the class recording. So I'll probably cut this part out or put it in a different recording from the actual math that we're going to do shortly here. But I will record each, excuse me. I will record each class and then I will post the recordings here. I will also post the quizzes and their solutions here eventually. And then there's some exam prep material. These are some practice midterms from previous quarters that I think might be helpful. There's solutions to the third one, and there's also solutions to the practice final. And I will probably write up some solutions to the first midterm. And I'll probably take a look at these when we get closer to actually having midterms in your classes and see how apt they are at being helpful, but they're certainly helpful a little bit. And then down here, we have the problem solving sheet. So these problem solving sheets, this PS1 here is the same as the PS1 here. I just thought it might be good to have them available there. But what you don't see here, because I don't have them easily available, is the solutions. So if you want to do some extra work, and I often, like today during class, I'm probably going to pull problems from this first problem solving worksheet. And maybe you have questions about it later. Maybe you're watching the video and you're like, James maybe didn't explain that so well. You can go look at the solutions over here. Right. So they're fairly easy. And these are all written by Grant. Grant does a good job of explaining things very well and writing probably much nicer than I do, which is another reason I didn't write the solutions. But that is definitely a place you can have some extra kind of help. I will also say, typically, we probably won't get through all the problems on one of these handouts if that's what we're working from. So if you're looking for extra kind of practice, you can go back and look at these and be like, oh, we didn't do that problem. Let me try it. And then you can look at what the solution is. So this is a good source of extra practice for the class if you don't feel like you're getting enough practice already. Let me see here. Oh, and then the last place is just the assignments, which we already looked at. So the assignments, which have the reflections and the quizzes, and you can also see your attendance. And then the discussions, which again, I would encourage you all to, utilize the discussions, or if someone else has started the discussion with a question and you think you have a response, feel free to write a response. I think that's kind of, I guess, there's the Zoom. So if you look at the Zoom tab, it does, it does have links to all the co-class meetings. That was exciting. Wasn't expecting that to happen. And yeah, I guess you can also get the grade scope from here, right? I don't think you need to, but right, you should be able to get to all the places from Canvas. So that's not where I want to go. And you can also find all the files for the class here, which, yeah, there's a lot of files there. Why is there integration? So I think all of my files are in here, so you might not want to check that out. Not that you're not welcome to, but there's a lot of files that are not like the 21B files. That's not stuff you need to be looking at because it's not helpful. So, but if you're looking for something and you can't find it, this is where you might find it. And then I guess there's some photos of me probably looking ridiculous. Oh yeah, here's a Christmas photo of me from many years ago, wearing my favorite shirt. Anyway, and here's a picture of me from Halloween as a pirate. Those are photos I shared last quarter with the students. Halloween and Christmas happened last quarter. All right, so I think that is all of the logistics as far as our class is concerned. Are there questions about that? About anything? It's okay if there aren't, but it's good to give people a chance to ask the questions. Run through the syllabus. Yes, we can. So let's run through this. And by the syllabus, you mean like what's on this page that you're seeing on my screen right now, correct? Yes, cool. So yes, some notes about the code class. And I'm just going to kind of hit the highlights here. So the class is meant as a support class for students who are enrolled in Math 16A. Each class period, I'm going to show you guys examples. I might have you do some work. I have found that in this particular setting, it often becomes more me showing and less me asking you guys to do stuff. It's hard to ask you guys to work on a problem and then just kind of sit and wait. So I will try to give you the opportunity to do some problems on your own, but I am not so good at that in this environment. I will try though. I'm going to record, edit, and post the class sessions. Class grading is pass, no pass. A passing grade is 75% or higher. 50% of your grade is based on attendance. So if you come every day, you get 50% of the points. If you, and so, I mean, right, we meet what, 20 times this quarter approximately. So each meeting is worth, I guess, 2.5% of your grade. And then 25% of your grade is just based on doing the reflection. As long as you submit something, you get the points. Likewise for the quizzes, as long as you submit a quiz, you get the points. And so as long as you get 75% of the grade, meaning, you know, you attended every class and you did all the reflections, you said, I don't want to do any quizzes, you pass. Or you did half the quizzes and half the reflections and all the attendance, right? As long as you get to 75% some way, you pass. The class is worth 1 workload unit, meaning again, counts towards being full-time, counts towards a visa and financial aid status, but does not count towards graduation. And then there's a note here about using the discussion tab, which I've already mentioned a few times. Again, I'll say one more time, I really encourage you to use the discussion tab. As far as the actual Math 16A class, each chapter unit in the course is connected to the other units and to prerequisite knowledge from your previous math classes. For this reason, it is really important that you stay engaged with the lecture and the homework as we go. Definitely make sure that you are doing the homework, the assignments in whoever your class is, teacher, whatever 16A class you're in. Typically, I feel like this estimate is probably pretty close to approximate. Successful students are usually spending 10 to 20 hours per week doing homework, practice problems, and studying for Math 16A. The more you practice and ask questions, the more successful you will be. I was, many years ago, a freshman at UC Davis taking Math 21A, and I definitely was spending at least 10 hours a week outside of class doing practice problems, homework, etc. So you definitely do need to spend time doing math, right? As one of my teachers would always say, you learn math through the tip of a pencil or pen if you're using pen, but meaning you actually have to write stuff down, right? Just looking at problems and seeing how someone else has done them, although useful, is not the same as actually doing it yourself. So really make sure you're actually getting out a writing utensil and getting out some paper and writing stuff down, because that is how a lot of people really learn it. And then places to get help: Casey, Claire, Duff, Grant, Sarah. There's a couple other math specialists I should add there because we have hired a couple people temporarily. And then also the student tutor and drop-in. In fact, let me click on this. Hopefully it is still active. Yeah. So right here, you can get help from the virtual drop-in room, which doesn't start until this date. Probably needs to be updated. That's not me. That's someone else. And then one-on-one appointments, and there's also content reviews. So none of these links I think are currently live because they don't start to happen until the second week of the quarter. But at some point, those should actually be available and helpful. And then below is just the course summary, basically everything that is in the class, all the class meetings, when the reflections are due, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. If you look at the calendar, which I have not been a fan of doing, it should show like everything that's happening in all of your classes, which is kind of a lot. But if you, right, you can click stuff off. So if we just look at Co-16A, it shows all the things that are happening in that class. The meetings, when the quizzes are due, when the reflections are due. So hopefully that is useful to you in your other classes as well. It might help you kind of figure out when things are due. And I think, so I think like this little symbol here means you actually have to turn in a thing, whereas this like calendar symbol means it's a class meeting. I haven't done a lot of looking at the calendar stuff, so I'm not super familiar with it, but it might be in your best interest if your other classes are on Canvas as well, which I imagine probably most of them are, to get kind of familiar with that, because especially with this online learning environment, right, it can be really kind of overwhelming to figure out when all the things are happening and when everything is due. I've tried to make stuff for this class pretty consistent each week, right? The reflections are due by 11:59 on Friday. You can also turn them in late, but I kind of wanted to get them in at the end of the week, so you were reflecting on that week. And then the quizzes are due Monday at noon. Also, you can turn them in late, But again, I kind of wanted to get them in Monday by noon so I could grade them before class on Tuesday. So I could kind of think about, oh, what should I be doing for class tomorrow? So that's why I picked the days that things are due, for consistency and for just trying to make the class better. Let's go ahead and look at, let's go back to the dashboard for a second. Oh, this is the student view. I want the teacher view. Where's my teacher view? There we are. Yeah. Sorry, let me get rid of this. So the other thing I did want to say, you're so in the way, is I've been invited to another Math 21C class. Great. Where's my stuff? Sorry, I know. Oh, there we are. So here, at least for those of you in, I don't know if your teacher is going by Abby or if she's going by Dr. Thompson. I have called her Abby because I know her as Abby. But Dr. Thompson, Abby Thompson, Thomas. Now I'm not sure if it's Thomas or Thompson. Thompson. Okay. All right. So here is the Canvas page for her class, and the things I have looked at that I would kind of encourage everyone to make sure they're aware of is specifically, I think under the files, she has her notes from class yesterday, and then a scan of the pages that have the problems for homework 0. So if you don't have the textbook, you're not planning on getting the textbook, which is fine. You have all of the problems or pages that have the problems that she has encouraged everyone to do right away. So I would also say, I looked at the problems she assigned. I think they're worthwhile. At least if you don't want to actually do them, at least make sure you know you are absolutely 100% capable of doing them. For those of you in Dr. Wynn's class, I don't know what she is having you guys do yet, but hopefully she will add me to her Canvas, and then I can kind of keep up to date with that as well. All right. What else? Is there anything else I should be saying about Dr. Thompson's class? We have a web work assignment. Oh, okay. I feel like I read something that said she hadn't set up web work yet, but maybe that is no longer true. I feel like, oh, for when? Okay. If it's not too much to ask Tatiana, since, sorry, not you don't have to, but if you wouldn't mind, if you could, if it's possible to email me screenshots of the assignment, that would if it's like too onerous, don't sweat it. But if it's easy to and you don't mind, great. That way, I mean, I imagine it's probably pretty similar, right? We're at the beginning of the quarter. It's all pretty much the same kind of pre-calculus review stuff, but it's good to see what people are doing. All right. Do you guys have other questions? Oh, thank you, Marshall. Appreciate the syllabus. That would be helpful. Also, I should point out, sometimes I accidentally, so reflection 0, quiz 0, we don't turn in. That's a good question. No, I think I still want you to turn them in, but let me double check now, because I will be perfectly honest. I did essentially copy this Canvas shell from a similar class last quarter because, right, why would I do all the same work again? That would be silly. Well, let me take a look. I'm pretty sure I still want you to turn the thing in. I think, yeah, reflection 0, it's not available yet, but I do want you to turn it in. So reflection 0, just in case you're curious, is a little bit more just, instead of having you like ask me questions and tell me about the math you've done this week, it's more just like getting to know you. What's your name? Where are you from? Pets? What math topic was challenging last quarter? So yeah, reflection 0 is still in the same vein of what's going on, but just a little bit more personal. And you should always feel free to not answer personal questions if you feel like they're too personal. I don't mean for them to be too personal, but if you're like, I don't want to answer that, it's perfectly okay. You don't even have to say like, I don't want to answer. You can just not answer, and that is all right. So yes, I do want you to turn in reflection 0. I probably also want you to turn in quiz 0, but let me take a look. Quiz 0 again, just to be sure. Oh yeah, so yeah, I do want you to do this. Basically, quiz 0 is just going to be you uploading an already completed quiz to Canvas and seeing how you actually assign questions and pages in Gradescope. Sorry, so you're not uploading to Canvas, you're uploading it to Gradescope. And you should definitely watch this little video first. It's pretty straightforward. The video is like a couple minutes. It's me just talking about like how to do the thing. So it shouldn't be too bad. That's a good, so someone asked me if my class will more closely supplement Professor Thompson or Professor Wynn's. I would imagine that my class will probably do a good job of supplementing both of them. Again, 16A especially is pretty dialed in for the teachers. Like there's not a lot of variability in how things get taught or the order they get taught in. So I would like to imagine that the class will probably be good for people in both of the professors' courses. That said, currently I only have access to, well, I mean, someone did just send me some of Dr. Wynn's material. So I will try to do a good job of keeping up with both. Right now I have more easy access to what Dr. Thompson is giving us. So I'm kind of looking at that material. But at this stage, you really should be fine in either class with what we're doing here. It should be, what we're doing should apply to everyone. But yeah, so quiz 0 is just making sure you know how to actually upload things and assign questions and pages in Gradescope.